All right, so while outside it sounds like, well, it's stormy out. So if you hear what sounds like applause in the background, that's actually rain and or hail. I haven't seen any flashes of lightning, heard any thunder yet, so we'll see. But it certainly sounds like there should be some out there, and that this is good timing because tonight the Lightning emerge victorious, and I really think this feels like the momentum has shifted. It really does. And when Tampa takes over a series, they did this against Boston, and tonight's game it really felt like they just took it over. So we'll see whether or not Dallas has an answer. Game 4, that's on Friday. Game 5 is on Saturday. We could have a Stanley Cup champion named and holding up that trophy by Saturday. Stamkos returned tonight. Kamano was in for the Stars. All eyes are on Stamkos. The 3 stars on this board. I put up 3 stars because I'm tired of waiting for the app to do it. Sometimes the app can be like an hour and they didn't show them on TV either. So all right. Anyways, for this game, the big storyline is Stamkos and what's going to happen. Guryanov had a breakaway that was denied by Hedman. Hedman gets a stick in there, and then it's Kucherov who ends up scoring at 5:33, and it was on an unfortunate no-look pass by Heiskanen as he fell down. So he right to Kucherov. That's the last guy you want to give the puck to. Kucherov makes them pay at 5:33. So it's about a minute and a half later, and Stamkos, in one of his few shifts of the game, gets a goal from Hedman and Ruda at 6:58. And that's one of those ones that I thought, Hudobin probably wants that one back, but, it's kind of nice to see Stamkos get a goal. I've got to be honest, even as a Dallas fan, I was like, that's a good story. And then I wrote underneath there, well, Dallas, it was fun, because it felt like this game was getting completely and totally out of control. But something happened after that goal. Chernak takes a penalty. I felt Dallas needed to score. Kiviranta then takes a penalty. 39 seconds of 4-on-4. And then during the power play for Tampa, Dickinson gets a shorthanded marker from Hintz at 11:19. And it felt at that point like maybe Dallas is back in this. Dallas was taking some control over this game. They were definitely up in the shots. Vasilevsky denied Perry as the Stars did take over since it was 2-0. In the last minute, it's a Radulov penalty, and it was a careless penalty. And it was not a good game for Radulov. And this is that. You get good Radulov, and then you get the Radulov that kind of drives you crazy. And tonight it was a Radulov that drives you crazy. Radulov's a very emotional player. And when he gets emotional during a game and he gets upset and frustrated, he will take penalties. And this was one of those games tonight. So Tampa Bay gets a power play in the last minute. So we start the second. Stamkos was not on the bench to start. He did not play every shift in the first period either. He started missing shifts at the end of it. He only played, I think they said it was 2 minutes and 27 seconds he had on the ice in this game. Hedman would score, however, from Cirelli at 54 seconds on the power play. So that penalty taken by Radulov, it's 3-1. I went over the pad, under the blocker. The Stars really needed to answer, and they needed to answer quickly. Instead, Radulov takes another bad penalty. And I felt like, all right, the Bolts can end this. Like, if they go up 4-1 in the second period, this is basically done. The penalty kill came through. Esa Lindell ended up being stranded on the ice. He was out there for over 2.5 minutes. But he did get off, and the Stars killed that off. And you thought, well, maybe the momentum... No. Stamkos came back to the bench. Didn't play. What it reminded me of was last year in the Stanley Cup Final when Zdeno Chara came back to the Boston bench, even though he knew he wasn't going to play. And it's one of those inspirational things, and I thought Stamkos being on the bench was huge for Tampa. And if you're a Tampa fan and you don't feel like that played any role, let me know in the comment section below. But it felt like Tampa was playing for Stamkos tonight. And even though he wasn't on the ice after that goal for very long, he only played 2 shifts after that goal, it just felt like the energy was rallying around him. The shots were 10-0 in favor of Tampa 9 minutes into that period. And it's another huge swing of momentum. And we've seen these swings of momentum in-game and in this series and in almost every series in the playoffs. And it's really weird how this happens. Stars get their first shot on a deflection right around the halfway mark. Tampa then gets a 3-on-1, and I thought it had to be a bad line change. But on the replay, it looked like it was just really poor defensive coverage. And Tampa going, hey, look, they're not back. Cool. Point scores from Kucherov and Hedman at 12:02. And I felt bad for Hudobin because there was no defensive. That one kind of reminded me of when Markstrom's facing 3 St. Louis Blues in the overtime, the 3-0. Yeah, that's still up here. That's still one. That's one of those memories you don't forget as a fan. You're like, really 3-0. That's interesting. Gord takes a penalty, and there was a scrum after, but Tampa Bay's penalty kill goes to work, and it held the Stars in their own end. A lot of that was Coleman. Coleman has been absolutely fantastic for the Tampa Bay Lightning, and he had another good game tonight. Hudobin then was playing without a stick, but Tampa Bay didn't get a shot while he didn't have a stick. The Stars seem to be slow. They're getting outplayed on every chance in that period, and Palat would score from point and Shattenkirk at 18:55, and just the amount of prime chances right in the slot for Tampa Bay in this period alone, it was crazy. So this is one of those games where it's 5-1 after 2. And I was like, well, this is where normally, if I didn't have a channel like this, I'd be like, well, I'll watch the next game. And I would change the channel because I would know there's no way Tampa Bay's blowing a 4-goal lead in the third period. So third period, Ottinger started the third, but poor kid. I will say this, though. Ottinger has a 1,000 save percentage in the playoffs. So if I'm his agent, I might be, making a phone call to Jim Nill and going, hey, have you seen his numbers in the playoffs? They're even better than Hudobin's. You don't need Hudobin. Just let him go. Make him the backup next year. I'm not saying that necessarily happens, but he hasn't allowed a goal. He looked okay. He didn't face a lot of shots, though, either. Janmark and Palat got penalties. It was 4-on-4. Things got kind of iffy. I actually thought Radulov in that situation could have got a penalty as well. I was surprised that they didn't pull an extra Dallas star off there and that it could have been Radulov. Ruda and Ben then got into it. They drew a whistle. Stars frustrated. Both players get a 12 minutes. So this is something that dates back to Antoine Roussel, right? The 10-minute misconduct. This is still a weapon being used by referees in these playoffs, and it's not just Roussel that gets it. So they get 2 minutes, and then they get 10-minute misconducts, both of them. Tampa Bay had to love that, which is, we lost Jan Ruda for 12 minutes, but they lost Jamie Benn, and they're down by 4. However, Heiskanen scores from Pavelski and Cogliano at 6:49. They went back and forth on this goal about whether or not Dickinson touched it. He didn't. It's Heiskanen's goal. And then the Stars' pressure draws a power play. Shattenkirk with the slash. But that power play, it sunk them. It did. They had no shots on that power play. It took all their momentum away. It was bizarre. It was like watching Columbus or Philadelphia or, other teams that have had trouble with their power play since the return. And then the announcers at this point, so Craig Simpson's hyping a comeback, like, he's seen Dallas come back before. And I'm like, and I put right here, that's not happening. It's not. Radulov headed to the quiet room after a collision into the boards. He would come back into the game, but not really a positive influence for the Stars tonight. Neither was Corey Perry, and this is one of those things where I know people get mad. They're like, Dallas, they're such a dirty team. And right, and I understand why people feel that way. I don't necessarily agree. I agree that in Game 2, there were a few plays that crossed that line. I didn't see it so much tonight. I know Maroon was upset where he got sandwiched between 2 players. That's the Ryan Reeves play. That's what that is. Where it's technically legal, but it's 2 players hitting one guy. And anyways, but that physical nature and that line that Dallas plays on, it can backfire on them too. So as much as people get upset, hey, it's sort of like Nick Ritchie for Boston, where it backfired on Boston and on Nick Ritchie, and he ends up being benched the next game. So there was sort of some of that going on tonight with Dallas as well, where some of these hits, just the emotion that this team plays with was backfiring on them. Sergachev takes a penalty with 7:19 left. He did not agree with it. He was making numerous comments about fudge on his way to the penalty box. I assume so anyways. They bleep it out. Must be anti-fudge, I guess. The Stars get their 4th power play, and it just couldn't set up. There was no setup to that power play, no confidence. Great penalty kill again by the Tampa Bay Lightning. Very few shots in that third period in general as the Bolts just shut the game down. Lots and lots of hits. The third period was filled with hits. These teams really have amped up the dislike, and it feels like there's more penalties and more scrums than we normally would see in a Stanley Cup final. It almost feels like a first-round series where you see all those scrums and a couple of fights break out. We didn't get the fights, but it feels like next game we probably will. Maroon took a couple of numbers tonight, and I get the feeling Maroon might drop the gloves next game because he took numbers after he got drilled on the boards there. There was a scrum with 1:55 left. I thought it was an ugly finish to the game. A lot of players were sent to the dressing room early, so there were a lot of empty spaces on the bench. Good social distancing when you don't have half the bench filled and all that. So the refs are just looking out for the players. So it's a power play for the Bolts on a Pavelski cross-check, which is frustration. He's coming back. He cross-checks a player in the ribs, and it was not a good penalty, but it's just sheer frustration from Pavelski. And this is the thing. You play on that line, you get frustrated, you cross that line. Gurianov then took a puck in the teeth on the bench, and I thought, yeah, that sounds about right. Yep, that's about what it is, and he left. I don't know how many teeth it took out, but I'm thinking at least 2 up front. But it was that kind of night for Dallas. So Tampa Bay wins at 5-2. This is the third game-winning goal for Victor Hedman. Ties Duncan Keith, who had 3 power play goals as a defenseman in 2015. Keith would win the Conn Smythe. And yes, right now Hedman probably has the lead in Conn Smythe voting. Although again, to me, Vasilevsky should get some comments as well. I know his save percentage tonight isn't fantastic, but he made the saves when he needed to. Shots in this game, 16-8 for Dallas in the first, and then in the second and third they managed 8 shots. They had half the shots in the second and third they had in the first. Tampa Bay outshoots them 21-4 in the second, and then they outshot Tampa 4-3 in the third period. Final shots 32-24 in favor of the Tampa Bay Lightning. The hits were 58-54 for Dallas. Impressive that Tampa threw that many hits, considering they were that far ahead on the shots. Power plays 1 for 3 for Tampa, 0 for 4 for Dallas. Vasilevsky, 21 saves on 23 shots for the Bolts. Hudobin saves 24 out of 29 before being replaced. Ottinger saved 3 out of 3 in relief. So yeah, Game 1 was a 4-1 win for Dallas. Game 2, 3-2 win for Tampa. And now a 5-2 win for Tampa. It feels like it's going further and further in Tampa's favor. I would not be entirely surprised if Tampa wins this series in 5 now. And just for the record, whoever wins Game 3, after the series has been a tie in the first 2 games, they do win 75% of the Stanley Cup final matchups. My 3 stars for this game, I give Stamkos the first star because he comes back, he sits on the bench the rest of the game, he's an emotional leader. He did come out and play and score the goal that would have been the game winner if not for Heiskanen's goal in the third period. Hedman I gave the second star. He does get the game-winning goal. He has a couple of assists as well. He's been absolutely fantastic. And then Braden Point. Braden Point, I thought, had a really solid game, considering he's been banged up throughout the playoffs as well. All 3 of those players have fought through injuries in these playoffs. They've been a great story. And the Tampa Bay Lightning really are all about being resilient, hardworking, and battling through adversity. And an entire year of hearing about how they choked in the first round, they weren't good enough, and their GM having the wisdom to bring in Goudreau and Coleman. They've been exactly what this team needed, and it's given them the kind of physical edge they've needed against a Dallas Stars team that without those 2 players, I don't know that Tampa would be leading this team. I don't know that they would have got to the Stanley Cup final either. But hey, they're 2 wins away from a Stanley Cup. Dallas is 3 wins away from a Stanley Cup. If Dallas can somehow come back and win this series, it'll be one of those miraculous comebacks. But I don't know. It feels like tonight was a big emotional win for Tampa. And if this is a free-flowing, all-skill game, it definitely favors the Tampa Bay Lightning. But series isn't over. Tonight it kind of feels pretty one-sided. It was very nice of the rain to die down as soon as I started recording. Thank you, Mother Nature. I'll pay you back for that. All right. Thank you guys so much for all your support. Let me know your thoughts regarding the game in the comment section below. As always, don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. This was a really good game if you're a Tampa fan. You've got to feel pretty good about their chances to win the Stanley Cup. And, and we'll see what happens in Game 4. Again, it's been unpredictable. I'm not going to write Dallas off. They were down 2-1 against Calgary, and they were really close to being down 3-1. But to me, Tampa Bay isn't quite Calgary. So we'll see what happens. Thank you guys so much for all your support. I'll talk to you again soon.